every year, the same table. The same 8 chairs that somehow seat 12. The same baked ham smell soaking into the curtains like it's paying rent. The same cousins, arguing about football scores, while the aunts and uncles watch from a distance like retired referees, who still remember every call. And every year, the same invisible scoreboard. Nobody announces it. Nobody has to. It just lives there, somewhere between the breadbasket and the gravy boat. People measuring each other's lives the way farmers inspect crops at harvest. Who's growing? Who's stalled? Who planted in the wrong field? I learned early that my work didn't translate well at that table. My brother Marcus's did. Marcus worked at a tech company whose name everyone recognized the second he said it. He spoke in a language that sounded important, even when people didn't fully understand it. Words like asterisk deployment asterisk infrastructure at scale asterisk system architecture asterisk. He said them the way a surgeon mentions a procedure, with the quiet confidence of someone who assumes the room will keep up. And the room always leaned forward. Even our grandmother, who still called the television asterisk the picture box asterisk, leaned forward when Marcus talked. My work was harder to summarize. So over the years, I stopped trying. If someone asked, I said I worked in software partnerships and enterprise deals. That was enough to make people nod the way they nod at mechanics explaining something under the hood politely, distantly, already thinking about something else. I was fine with it. I had made my peace with that version of Easter dinner a long time ago. This year felt exactly the same when I walked in. Same table, same ham, same invisible scoreboard already hanging in the air before coats were even off. Marcus arrived 30 minutes late, which somehow only made his entrance better. He slid into his chair mid-story. Something about a product launch and a team that couldn't keep up with the pressure. The table reorganized itself around him the way it always did. Cousins turning slightly in their chairs. Uncles setting down their forks. Even the side conversations dimmed a little. The way background music lowers when someone important starts talking. I ate quietly. I was used to this. I didn't resent it. It was just the weather at our family dinners. Somewhere around the second round of passing dishes, the conversation drifted toward layoffs. Someone mentioned a neighbor's kid who'd been let go from a big firm. An uncle shook his head slowly. The whole industry sounds brutal right now, he said. Marcus wiped his mouth with his napkin, leaned back in his chair, and said with the comfortable ease of someone who had never once doubted his place in any room. Well, not everyone is built for a real career in tech. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. The sentence just floated there, light as smoke. Not a direct hit, just familiar gravity pulling everything in a particular direction. A couple of cousins smiled. Someone changed the subject halfway. I focused on cutting my ham. I had been in this exact moment before. The old version of me would have tried to explain things. How the industry is bigger than the names people recognize. How entire layers of work exist behind the companies that make headlines. How the deals that don't get announced are sometimes the ones that matter most. But explanations at Easter dinner become debates. And debates at Easter dinner don't end. They just get stored and brought back out next year, still warm. So I stayed quiet. What nobody at that table knew. What I had never once mentioned in any family gathering, any phone call, any casual text chain, was that the past 11 months of my life had been the most intense stretch of my career. Late nights, lawyers on calls from 3 different time zones, financial models rebuilt from scratch every other week, negotiations that progressed, then collapsed, then quietly started over, months of work that existed entirely in secure documents, private conference rooms, and conversations that legally couldn't be discussed outside of them. From the outside, it looked like nothing. That was the point. The table kept moving. Someone asked for the potatoes. Someone else started complaining about airline prices going into summer. Dessert was mentioned. The conversation found its current and floated along. And then my grandmother spoke. She had been doing what she always does at these dinners, watching. Not in a distant way, but the way someone reads a room they've been reading for 60 years. She turned slightly in her chair and looked directly at me. Her voice was completely casual, like she was asking me to pass the salt. "Sweetheart," she said, "is that why your company just bought his?" The table didn't explode. It just paused. The way a room pauses when everyone hears something at the same time and nobody is quite sure they heard it correctly. Marcus looked up. "But whose?" he asked, still calm, still operating on the old map. Grandma shrugged lightly. "Mrs. Callahan's grandson works in finance somewhere downtown. He mentioned an acquisition. Said he thought it involved your company." She nodded toward me. "And Marcus's." Forks stopped. Glasses stayed on the table. Someone's chair shifted. I felt something cross a border inside me. My work had lived in a completely separate world for almost a year. Now it was standing in the dining room, still in its coat. "It closed last week," I said. That was all. No setup. No explanation. Just the fact. Placed on the table like a dish that had been sitting in the oven the whole time. My uncle leaned forward slowly. "Wait, your company acquired?" "Yes." Marcus was already on his phone. Still composed, but searching. His eyes moved fast across the screen. Then they stopped. Something in his face shifted. Not embarrassment exactly. More like a man realizing the GPS has been showing him the wrong route. For the last hour. Acquisitions travel strangely through large organizations. Sometimes news takes days to reach the people most affected. Apparently, today was that day. He looked up from his phone. "So you were part of the team that negotiated it?" "The leadership group, yes." No extra weight in the sentence. No pause for effect. Just the answer. Nobody laughed. Nobody made a toast. The authority wasn't coming from anything I said. It was coming from something that had already happened. Paperwork already signed. Companies already merged. Org charts already rewriting themselves. In offices far away from this. Dining room table with its mismatched chairs and its curtains that smelled like ham. Marcus sat back. For the rest of dinner, he talked the way people talk when they've just recalibrated something. Still engaged, still himself, but quieter. More careful. Like someone who realized the ceiling in the room was higher than he thought. Dessert arrived. My aunt told a story about her neighbor's dog getting into the recycling again. The table found its rhythm, though something underneath it had quietly shifted for good. Later, I was stacking plates in the kitchen when my grandmother came in behind me. She dried her hands on a dish towel, looked at me with a small expression that contained about 40 years of watching people, and said, "I always figured your work was bigger than you made it sound." I smiled. I never really saw the point in explaining it. She nodded once, like that was the most sensible thing anyone had said all evening. In the dining room, Marcus's voice drifted in again. Softer now. He was talking with our uncle about changes in the industry, asking questions instead of making statements. I stood in the kitchen for a moment and listened. The strange thing was, I felt no victory. The acquisition had taken nearly a year of my life. The dinner table moment, the pause, the phone check, the recalibration lasted maybe 45 seconds. Compared to the actual work, it was nothing. A footnote. A small atmospheric change in a room that would be packed up and stored until next Easter. What I felt instead was something quieter and more permanent. For the first time in years sitting at that table, I didn't need the room to understand what I did. I didn't need the scoreboard to update in real time. I didn't need to explain what lived under the hood. The work had already spoken, and it had done it in exactly one sentence. Delivered by a 78-year-old woman who had been watching everything the whole time.